Taiwan stood at the large window of the space station, his hands behind his back. His reflection showed a young Korean man in a neat blue diplomatic uniform. The stars stretched out endlessly before him. This was his first day as Earth's newest diplomatic trainee at the Galactic Council space station. Amazing view, isn't it? A soft voice spoke behind him. Especially for someone from such a basic planet. Taiwan turned around slowly. His breath caught in his throat. Before him stood the most unusual being he had ever seen. She looked almost human, except her skin had a slight blue tint, and her hair seemed to float as if she were underwater. Her name tag read, Hey Newell, in both Earth Standard and Galactic Common. I'm Taiwan Kim, from Earth, he said, bowing slightly. Earth's diplomatic training had taught him to always be polite, even when faced with rudeness. Hey Newell's lips curved into an amused smile. Oh, I know you're from Earth. Only humans bow like that. It's quite cute, like watching a baby take its first steps into galactic society. Taiwan felt his cheeks grow warm, but he kept his composure. Every species has its own customs, he said calmly. Indeed, some are just more evolved than others. Hey Newell walked closer, her movements graceful and fluid. Did you know that my people, the Lyrians, had already built this space station when your ancestors were still fighting with metal swords? That's very impressive, Taiwan replied. We humans are quick learners, though. Newell laughed. The sound was like musical bells, but there was a hint of mockery in it. Quick learners. Is that what you call it? Your species only figured out how to split the atom about 200 years ago. My people were doing that before we developed written language. A group of other diplomatic trainees walked past, some giving sympathetic looks to Taiwan. He had heard about Hey Newell during his orientation. She was one of the senior diplomats from Lyria, known for her sharp wit and even sharper tongue, especially when it came to humans. Would you like to join me for the welcome ceremony? Hey Newell asked, gesturing toward the main hall. I always enjoy watching new human diplomats try to use our advanced technology. Last month, one of your colleagues spent 10 minutes trying to operate a food synthesizer. He ended up with what you humans call socks instead of soup. Taiwan smiled politely. Thank you for the invitation. I would be honored. The main hall was enormous, with a ceiling that seemed to change colors like an aurora. Beings from dozens of different species mingled around floating tables that adjusted their height automatically for each guest's comfort. Taiwan noticed that most of the technology in the room responded to thought commands, but there were manual controls near the human delegation's area. Newell led him to a group of alien diplomats. Everyone, meet Taiwan. He's our newest human representative. Isn't he adorable? Look how he keeps reaching for physical buttons instead of using neural interfaces. The other diplomats chuckled, but Taiwan noticed something interesting. While Hey Newell was mocking him, her eyes showed genuine curiosity. She watched his every reaction carefully, as if studying him. Would anyone like to hear about the time a human ambassador tried to use our molecular transport system? Hey Newell asked the group. He accidentally sent himself to the waste processing level. As the others laughed, Taiwan spoke up. That ambassador went on to establish the first successful trade route between Earth and the Centaurian Empire, he said quietly. Sometimes, learning from our mistakes makes us stronger. Hey Newell's expression changed for just a moment. Was that respect in her eyes? But it vanished quickly behind her usual playful mockery. Oh, listen to him. Using such simple wisdom. It's like watching a child recite poetry. The welcome ceremony continued, and Taiwan found himself constantly in Hey Newell's orbit. She seemed to take special delight in pointing out his every mistake. When he accidentally activated a floating chair's emergency protocols, she spent 10 minutes telling everyone about it. When he mispronounced Illyrian greeting, she made him repeat it 5 times, each repetition making the other diplomats laugh harder. But something wasn't adding up. If Hey Newell truly thought humans were so primitive, why did she spend so much time around them? Why did she always seem to be watching Taiwan with such intensity when she thought he wasn't looking. Near the end of the ceremony, Taiwan was trying to use a data tablet. The interface was giving him trouble, and Haenul appeared beside him again. "Having problems with our simple technology?" she asked, her voice dripping with amusement. "Here, let me help you. Though I must say, watching you struggle with it is quite entertaining. It's like seeing someone try to eat soup with a fork." As she reached over to help, her hand brushed against his. Taiwan felt a slight electric tingle, and for a brief moment, he caught a glimpse of something in Haenul's mind. A flash of genuine interest, a hint of admiration. And was that attraction? The moment passed quickly, but it left Taiwan confused. He had read that Lyrians were touch telepaths, but the diplomatic briefings said they had strong mental shields that prevented accidental contact. Had Haenul let her shield slip on purpose? "There you go," Haenul said, stepping back. "Though I suppose I should write an instruction manual for you. One with lots of pictures and simple words." She laughed again, but this time it sounded almost forced. As the ceremony drew to a close, Taiwan found himself alone with Haenul near the window where they had first met. The stars seemed even brighter now, casting a soft glow over her unusual features. "Thank you for your help today," Taiwan said carefully. "It's been an educational experience." Haenul tilted her head, studying him. "You're different from the other humans I've met," she said. "Most of them get angry or frustrated by now. You just keep smiling and learning. It's almost like you can see something they can't." Before Taiwan could respond, Haenul's playful smirk returned. "But don't let that go to your head. You're still centuries behind us. Did you know that the chair you're standing next to is smarter than all of Earth's computers combined?" Taiwan looked at the chair, then back at Haenul. "Maybe," he said with a slight smile. "But I'd rather learn from someone who knows more than me than pretend I know everything." For a split second, Haenul's composed expression cracked. Something like surprise and interest flashed across her face, but she quickly covered it with another laugh. "Well, you'll have plenty of chances to learn, little human," she said, turning to leave. "I'm the diplomatic liaison for the Earth section. We'll be seeing a lot of each other." She paused at the door. "Try not to blow anything up before tomorrow. Though I must admit, human accidents are the most entertaining part of my day." As Haenul's footsteps faded away, Taiwan turned back to the window. The vast expanse of space stretched before him, filled with countless worlds and possibilities. He thought about Haenul's behavior, the strange moment of telepathic contact, and her constant attention to his actions. There was more to her mockery than simple ridicule. He was sure of it now. But what was her real purpose? Why did she spend so much time teasing humans if she found them so primitive? And why did she let him catch that glimpse of her true thoughts? Taiwan smiled to himself. His diplomatic training had taught him that understanding other species was like solving a puzzle. You had to look past the obvious and see the patterns hidden underneath. Haenul was definitely a puzzle, but he had always been good at solving those. The space station's artificial day cycle began to dim, simulating evening. As other diplomats headed to their quarters, Taiwan made a decision. He would play along with Haenul's game for now. Something told him there was much more to learn about the beautiful alien who seemed to enjoy making fun of humans so much. After all, in his experience, those who tried the hardest to push others away often had the most interesting reasons for doing so. And if there was one thing humans were good at, it was turning obstacles into opportunities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new mockery, and new chances to understand the mysterious Haenul. Taiwan was looking forward to it all. 3 weeks had passed since Taiwan's first day at the Galactic Council space station. He sat at his desk, reviewing documents about a new trade agreement between Earth and Lyria. The holographic screen in front of him showed complicated charts and numbers. Still reading one word at a time. How charmingly primitive. Haenul's familiar voice came from behind him. She had a habit of appearing when he least expected it. Taiwan turned in his chair. "Good morning, Haenul." "Yes, some of us like to be thorough." Thorough. Is that what you call being slow? She walked around his desk, her blue-tinted skin seeming to glow under the office lights. You know, Lyrian Child could read that entire document in seconds. Before Taiwan could respond, another voice joined their conversation. Delegate He Newell, always teasing our new staff, I see. It was Jai-Yun Park, one of the senior human diplomats. She was an older woman with kind eyes and gray streaks in her hair. She carried herself with quiet confidence that came from years of diplomatic service. He Newell's smile widened. Senior Diplomat Park, I was just helping young Taiwan understand how backward human reading methods are. Jai-Yun gave He Newell a knowing look. Of course you were. She turned to Taiwan. Could I borrow you for a moment? They walked to Jai-Yun's office, leaving He Newell watching them with curious eyes. Once inside, Jai-Yun's expression grew serious. Be careful with He Newell, she said softly. She has a reputation for playing with other species' emotions. Last year, she had a Centaurian diplomat so confused about her intentions that he nearly caused a diplomatic incident. Taiwan nodded. I've noticed she pays special attention to humans. Special attention to you, specifically, Jai-Yun corrected. I've worked with Lyrians for 20 years. They're not usually this interested in us, unless they want something. Their conversation was interrupted by a message notification. The holographic display showed He Newell's name. She wanted Taiwan to join her for a project meeting. Jai-Yun sighed. Just be careful. And remember, Lyrians always have a reason for everything they do. The meeting room He Newell had chosen was small by station standards, with a window showing the curve of a nearby planet. She was already there, playing with a small device in her hands. Finally, I thought you might have gotten lost. Again, she laughed, remembering the time Taiwan had accidentally taken the wrong transport tube and ended up in the station's garden level. What's the project? Taiwan asked, sitting down. We're going to study primitive cultures, He Newell said with her usual smirk. Specifically, yours. She activated a holographic display showing Earth's history. But as they worked, something strange happened. He Newell's mockery seemed to fade when they discussed human art and music. She spent a long time looking at images of ancient Korean temples. Your ancestors built this without neural architects, she asked, studying a picture of Bulguksa Temple. Her voice held genuine curiosity. Yes. Just stone, wood, and human hands, Taiwan explained. He noticed she had leaned closer, her usual playful distance forgotten. Tell me more, she said softly, then caught herself. I mean, it's amusing how proud you are of stacking rocks. But the moment had changed something. Taiwan decided to take a risk. He pulled out a small device from his pocket, an old-fashioned music player his grandmother had given him. Would you like to hear traditional Korean music? He asked. He Newell's eyes widened with interest, though she tried to hide it. Oh, how quaint. You still use physical music players. That's like using a rock to scratch pictures on a cave wall. But she listened. The haunting sound of a geijum filled the room. He Newell sat perfectly still, her mockery forgotten. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. She started, then paused, searching for a way to maintain her usual attitude. Well, it's not completely terrible. For primitive music, Taiwan noticed her fingers moving slightly, following the rhythm. He decided to push further. Would you like to learn about more human culture? Learn about human culture? He Newell laughed, but it sounded forced. That's like asking a quantum physicist to study counting blocks. She stood up and walked to the window, but Taiwan saw her reflection in the glass. She was smiling, not her usual mocking smile, but something more genuine. They spent the next few hours talking about Earth's cultures. Though He Newell kept making jokes about human technology, her questions about art, music, and literature became more frequent and serious. As their meeting was ending, He Newell suddenly turned to Taiwan with an unusual expression. You should come to my quarters tomorrow evening, she said. For research purposes, of course. I want to study primitive human behavior patterns. Taiwan's heart skipped a beat. Private quarters were considered very personal space in Lyrian culture. Such an invitation was rare. Research purposes, he asked carefully. Obviously, Haynul's mocking tone returned, but it felt different now. I need to document how humans react in different social situations. It's quite entertaining, really. Like watching a baby animal discover its reflection. But as she turned to leave, her hand brushed against his arm again. Just like their first meeting, Taiwan felt that slight telepathic connection. This time, he caught a clearer impression. Excitement, curiosity, and something else he couldn't quite identify. Tomorrow evening, then, she asked, already walking away. Try not to get lost on your way there. Though I must admit, your confused face when you end up in the wrong place is quite amusing. After she left, Ta-Wan sat alone in the meeting room, thinking. Jai-Yun's warning echoed in his mind, but so did the memory of Haynul's genuine smile when she listened to Korean music. Her mockery was changing, becoming more like a habit than a weapon. He looked out at the stars, remembering how his grandmother used to say that the hardest walls to break down were the ones people built around their hearts. Maybe Haynul's ridicule was such a wall. And maybe, just maybe, human music and art had found a crack in it. Tomorrow evening would either prove Jai-Yun right about Haynul's games or reveal something deeper behind all the mockery. As Ta-Wan headed back to his quarters, he realized he was looking forward to finding out which it would be. After all, as his diplomatic training had taught him, the most important discoveries often came from the most unexpected places, and Haynul's quarters might just hold the biggest discovery yet about why this fascinating alien woman spent so much time pretending to look down on humans while secretly studying their culture with such intense interest. Ta-Wan stood outside Haynul's quarters, his heart beating faster than usual. The door was different from the standard station doors. It had intricate patterns that seemed to move and change, like waves in an ocean. He pressed the notification panel, and the door slid open silently. Haynul's voice called from inside. Come in, if you can figure out how to walk through a doorway. The first thing Ta-Wan noticed was that her quarters were much larger than his. The second thing he noticed made him stop in surprise. The walls were covered with human artifacts. Traditional Korean fans hung next to Indian tapestries. Chinese calligraphy shared space with African masks. A shelf held real paper books, rare and expensive items in the space age. Haynul stood in the center of the room, watching his reaction. Her usual mocking smile was there, but it seemed softer somehow. Surprised to see so many primitive objects. I collect amusing things. Ta-Wan walked slowly around the room, taking everything in. This is an original vinyl record player, he said, pointing to a device in the corner. These are very hard to find now, even on Earth. Oh yes, your species' charming attempt at audio recording, Haynul said, but her voice lacked its usual sharp edge. Would you like to see something interesting? She led him to a door at the back of the room. It opened to reveal a smaller room filled with holographic displays. Each one showed different aspects of human history and achievement. This is my research room, Haynul explained. I've been studying your species for quite some time. Research? Ta-Wan asked, watching as one display showed the history of human spaceflight. Haynul was quiet for a moment, then spoke in a different tone, more serious than he had ever heard her use. Do you know why Lyrians mock other species, Ta-Wan? He shook his head. It's how we show interest, she said softly. In our culture, if something isn't worth studying, it isn't worth mocking. The more we tease, the more fascinated we are. Ta-Wan's mind raced, thinking back to all her mockery over the past weeks. So when you make fun of humans, I'm showing my deep interest in your species, Haynul finished. She walked to one of the displays and touched it. The image changed to show Earth's technological progress over time. Do you know what this graph shows? Our development from the industrial age to now, Taiwan said. Yes, but look at the time scale. Haynewell's voice was excited now. What your species achieved in 1,000 years took my people 10,000 years. Do you understand? You're not primitive at all. You're advancing at an incredible speed. She turned to face him, and for the first time, there was no mockery in her expression. When I told you that chair was smarter than all Earth's computers combined, that was true. But what I didn't say was that humans built computers that could think in just 200 years. It took us 2,000 years to do the same. Taiwan sat down slowly in a nearby chair. Is that why you spend so much time around humans? Why you invited me here? Haynewell nodded. My people believe that understanding comes from observation. I've been watching humans for years, trying to understand how you progress so quickly. She paused, then added with a small smile. And yes, when I make fun of someone constantly, in my culture, it's also a form of courtship. Taiwan's eyes widened. Courtship. Don't let it go to your head, Haynewell said quickly, some of her usual playful tone returning. I'm just saying that my people show romantic interest through playful mockery. It's part of our way of testing compatibility. She walked to another display and activated it. A holographic presentation appeared in the center of the room, showing Earth's artistic and cultural development alongside its technological progress. Look at this, she said eagerly. While you were developing faster ships, you were also creating new music. While you were building better computers, you were writing poetry. Most species focus on either technological or cultural development. Humans do both at the same time. Taiwan watched as the presentation showed hundreds of human achievements, all happening in parallel. We just want to learn and grow, he said simply. Exactly. Haynewell's excitement was clear now. Your species has such curiosity, such drive to improve. You don't wait for things to happen. You make them happen. Do you know how rare that is in the galaxy? She sat down next to him, her usual mocking distance forgotten. Most species take time to develop. They move slowly, carefully. But humans, you see something new and immediately think, how can we use this? How can we make it better? It's fascinating. Is that why you let me feel your thoughts sometimes? Taiwan asked. When you touch my arm. Haynewell looked slightly embarrassed. You noticed that? Yes. It's another Lyrian custom. We share surface thoughts with those we find interesting. I wanted you to know that my mockery wasn't meant to hurt. She stood up suddenly and walked to a shelf, returning with something in her hands. It was a small wooden Korean music box. This is over 200 years old, she said. I found it in an Earth antique shop. Do you know what amazed me about it? Taiwan shook his head. It still works perfectly, Haynewell said, opening the box. A gentle melody filled the room. Your ancestors built things to last, even before they had advanced technology. They put beauty and function together in perfect balance, just like you still do today. As they sat listening to the music box, Taiwan thought about everything he had learned. Haynewell's mockery, her constant attention to humans, her collection of Earth artifacts. It all made sense now. So, he said carefully, when you invited me here to study primitive human behavior patterns. Haynewell laughed, but this time it was warm and genuine. I wanted to show you the truth. And yes, I wanted to spend time with you without having to pretend I was just studying an amusing primitive species. She looked at him seriously. There's something happening tomorrow at the Galactic Council. Something important for Earth. I wanted you to understand why I act the way I do before then. What's happening tomorrow? Taiwan asked. Haynewell stood up and walked to the window. The stars reflected in her eyes as she turned back to him. Tomorrow, another species will try to block Earth's full membership in the Galactic Council. They'll say humans are too primitive, too unpredictable. She smiled, and this time it was a smile of determination. And I'm going to help prove them wrong. But first, I needed you to understand why a Lyrian diplomat who seems to mock humans constantly would stand up and defend them. The music box played its last notes, and silence filled the room. Taiwan looked around at all the human artifacts, at the research displays, at this alien woman who had hidden her admiration behind playful ridicule. "Thank you," he said simply, "for showing me the truth." Haynul's eyes sparkled with their usual mischief, but now he could see the warmth behind it. "Don't thank me yet. Tomorrow is going to be very interesting. And you, my delightfully quick-learning human, are going to help me show the Council exactly why Earth deserves its place among the stars." The Galactic Council chamber was the largest room Taiwan had ever seen. Circular rows of seats rose up like steps in a giant bowl, each filled with representatives from different worlds. The ceiling showed a real-time map of the galaxy, with thousands of tiny lights marking inhabited worlds. Taiwan sat with the Earth delegation, trying to stay calm. Next to him, Jai-Yun Park watched the proceedings with worried eyes. "Something's wrong," she whispered. The Drachnid representative asked to speak about Earth's membership application. "They never do that unless they want to cause trouble." At the center of the chamber, a tall, reptilian being stood up. Ambassador Kex of the Drachnid Empire was known for his strong opinions about newer species. His scales gleamed under the chamber's lights as he began to speak. "Honored council members," Kex's voice boomed through the chamber. "We are here to discuss Earth's application for full membership. I must speak against this. Humans are too young, too unpredictable. They are barely out of their Stone Age." Murmurs filled the chamber. Some representatives nodded in agreement. Taiwan felt his heart sink. The Drachnids were one of the oldest species in the Council. Their words carried great weight. "Look at their history," Kex continued. "They still fight among themselves. They damage their own planet. They rush into space without proper preparation. Giving them full membership would be like giving a child a dangerous weapon." More representatives were nodding now. Taiwan looked around desperately. Where was Haynul? Her seat in the Lyrian section was empty. Furthermore, Kex said, warming to his topic, "Humans lack the cultural refinement that council membership requires." I must disagree, Ambassador Kex." The clear voice cut through the chamber like a bell. Haynul stood at the speaking platform, her blue-tinted skin almost glowing under the lights. She wasn't wearing her usual diplomatic robes. Instead, she wore a traditional Korean hanbok, modified slightly to suit her Lyrian form. Kex looked surprised. "Delegate Haynul, you, of all people, defend the humans. Everyone knows how you mock their primitive ways." Haynul smiled, but it wasn't her usual mocking smile. It was confident and strong. "Yes, I tease humans. In my culture, we only tease those we respect and admire. And humans have earned that respect many times over." She touched a control panel, and the galaxy map above changed. Now it showed Earth's technological progress compared to other species. "Look at this carefully," Haynul said. "Humans went from their first powered flight to landing on their moon in just 66 years. It took the Drachnids 300 years to do the same." Kex's scales darkened with anger. "That just proves they are reckless." "No," Haynul said firmly. "It proves they are innovative, creative. Look at this." The display changed again, showing human art, music, and literature developing alongside their technology. While humans were learning to split atoms, they were also writing symphonies. While they were building spaceships, they were creating new forms of art. They don't just advance technically, they grow in all ways at once. She walked to the center of the chamber, her hanbok flowing gracefully. "Yesterday, a human showed me a music box that still works perfectly after 200 years. It was made before they had computers, before they had spaceflight. But it shows the same care, the same attention to detail that they put into their starships today." Taiwan realized she was talking about his visit to her quarters. He sat up straighter, watching as she continued. "Ambassador Kex says humans are unpredictable. He's right. They constantly surprise us by solving problems in new ways. He says they rush into things. Yes, they do. with enthusiasm and determination that we could all learn from. The chamber was silent now. Every representative was listening carefully. But most importantly, Hey Newell said, her voice growing softer but still clear, humans understand something that many older species have forgotten. They know that making mistakes is part of growing. They learn from their errors instead of hiding them. She touched the control panel one last time. The display showed Earth's diplomatic relations growing and spreading across the galaxy. In just 50 years since first contact, humans have established peaceful relations with 37 species. They've started 15 joint research projects. They've shared their art, their music, their stories with anyone who shows interest. Hey Newell turned to face Kex directly. You say they're too young. I say they're exactly what this council needs. Fresh eyes, new ideas, the courage to try things that older species would never think of. Taiwan felt something brush his mind, a gentle telepathic touch. He looked up to see Hey Newell glancing his way. In that brief contact, he felt her determination, her belief in what she was saying. I spend a lot of time watching humans, Hey Newell continued. Yes, I tease them. Yes, I point out their mistakes. But do you know what they do? They laugh with me, learn from the mistakes, and keep moving forward. That's rare. That's valuable. That's exactly the kind of species we want in this council. She reached into a pocket of her handbag and pulled out the old music box. This simple device shows what humans are capable of. Beautiful design, careful craftsmanship, and most importantly, the ability to make something that lasts. She opened the box. The sweet, clear notes of the traditional Korean melody filled the council chamber. Representatives leaned forward, listening to this piece of Earth's culture. Humans don't just build things, Hey Newell said softly as the music played. They build connections. Between people, between species, between art and science, past and future. Isn't that what the Galactic Council is supposed to be about? When the music ended, the chamber was completely silent. Then, one by one, representatives began to signal their vote. Green lights started appearing on the giant display. Votes in favor of Earth's membership. Kex stood again, his scales now a dull color. You're letting your personal feelings affect your judgment. Delegate Hey Newell. Your obvious affection for certain humans. Yes, Hey Newell interrupted, smiling broadly now. I do have affection for humans. I admit it freely. Because I've taken the time to really know them. Perhaps if you did the same, Ambassador, you'd understand why. The voting continued. Green lights far outnumbered the red. When the final count was displayed, even Jai-yun gasped in surprise. Earth had been accepted as a full member of the Galactic Council by one of the largest margins in recent history. Later, after the ceremony and celebrations, Taiwan found Hey Newell standing at the same window where they had first met. She was still wearing the handbag. The traditional clothes suit you, he said softly. She turned, and her smile was neither mocking nor diplomatic, just happy. Well, if I'm going to defend human culture, I should show it proper respect. She paused, then added with a hint of her old teasing, even if you did take forever to teach me how to wear it correctly. Taiwan laughed. Thank you. For everything you said in there. For everything you did. Hey Newell stepped closer. I meant every word. Though I hope you understand that I can't stop teasing you entirely. It's how my people show affection. I think I can live with that, Taiwan said. As long as you understand that humans show affection differently. Oh. Hey Newell raised an eyebrow. And how do humans show affection? Instead of answering, Taiwan took her hand. The telepathic connection opened immediately, but this time neither of them tried to hide their feelings. Well, Hey Newell said after a moment, her voice slightly shaky. That's certainly an interesting human custom. Too primitive for you? Taiwan asked, smiling. No, she said softly. Just right. Outside the window, the stars continued their eternal dance. Somewhere out there, Earth was celebrating its new status in the galaxy. But here, in this quiet moment, two beings from different worlds had found something more important than status or power. They had found understanding. And in the end, that's what both their cultures had been seeking all along.